This is She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. Your host, Kinsey Roberts, interviews incredible women in the wedding industry who are making their mark and creating success on their terms. Join the conversation.
Well, hey there and happy Tuesday. Welcome to She Creates Business, a podcast for wedding pros. This is your host, Kinsey Roberts. Thank you so much for listening in today. Hope you're having a great day and your week is off to an amazing start. Today on the podcast, I have Brittany Branson, who is a live artist at weddings, and she also does some whimsical wedding stationery over at By Brittany Branson. And you can find her on Instagram at By Brittany Branson, where you can check out all of her work and what she's up to these days. I'm really excited about this conversation today, you guys, because it is super raw and very real. It is really about how we can start our businesses and what am I trying to say? I'm stuttering a little bit because I just want to make sure I get the tone of this conversation right, because we really didn't hold back at all. We really were just kind of saying exactly what we thought. This is one of the first interviews that I did without kind of like pre-formed questions, and it turned out fabulously. And Brittany really brought her A game. We really talk about when you're just getting started in business, like Brittany is. She hasn't been doing this for very long, which she will be very upfront about. But she talks about when you're just getting started in business, it's not always the best thing, or it's not always easy to have your quote ideal client right away. We don't all get that, right? And really the only way you can get to your ideal client is by doing. So we can assume outcomes all we want, but we're not actually going to get the information that we desire and that we really need to operate our business from a really great place unless we actually get out there and do the thing. You know what I'm saying? So we can write down our ideal client on a piece of paper or our avatar or whatever the, gurus are teaching these days. But unless we actually get out there and have a few crappy weddings, we're not going to know what we don't like or what we do like. Or if we don't extend our services outside of what we think we should be offering, we're not even going to know if we actually like that. I was reading a really great email the other day from Kat Schmoyer of Creative Heart Conference and Dear Sweetheart Events, and she does not offer full planning services. Isn't that surprising? And I love that, because in our industry, it's like, oh my gosh, day of coordination and design and blah, blah, blah is like, oh, I don't want to do that because it's always the worst clients. But actually, Kat loves it. She loves those clients. She loves that package. And she is like living her best planning life because she did not like full planning clients. I think that is a perfect and classic example of going against the grain and saying, no, I don't really like that. I am going to try this other thing that most people don't tend to like. And she's killing the game. And that's really what this conversation is about. So it was really timely for me to receive that email the other day and then listen to this podcast again while I was editing it. I was like, yes, it's okay for us to do things that seem out of the norm. You know what I'm saying? And so that's really what Brittany and I talk about today. And then she says one thing that she says a lot of great things, but she says something that is just so brilliant. And I hope that we all take it away from this episode. She said, stop comparing yourself, especially across disciplines. Obviously, you know that comparison is the thief of joy. And Laura Casey says it's the thief of everything. But comparing yourself, especially across disciplines, meaning I own a wedding venue. So if I compare myself to a wedding photographer, that just doesn't make any sense. We're not even in the same discipline. Yes, we're in the same industry, but we operate completely different businesses. And I loved that she said that, Brittany said that today. So stop comparing yourself in general. That's really tough to do. And I think that that's a progression of just, getting older in business and getting older in life and really realizing who we are and who our ideal client actually is, because we've been there, done that, and had those experiences. But I thought this was brilliant because we can all do this right now. If you have this penchant to compare yourself to other people, I know I do too sometimes. We're all human beings. But if you could take this one thing away and just at least stop comparing yourself across disciplines. So if you're a photographer, stop comparing yourself to planners. If you're a planner, stop comparing yourself to venue owners. If you are a stationery designer and artist, stop comparing yourself to photographers. It just doesn't make any sense. And when you think about it logically that way, it just like mind blown. I was like, I totally need to stop doing that because I'm a venue owner. I'm not a photographer. I'm not a wedding planner. Just so brilliant. I love that. That's just one of the aspects of this episode today that I think you will really enjoy with Brittany. I really appreciated just her complete realness. And she's so new in business, like a lot of us, that it wasn't a polished, like, this is the brand, this is the person that I'm trying to like come across as. So I'm only going to say what I want to say about this one topic. We were kind of all over the place and it was an incredible conversation. So without further ado, let's go to the show. Just wanted to remind you guys really quickly that today is one of the last days you can order the She Creates Business, a podcast for a book for wedding pros. Pardon me, I'm used to saying the other one. She Creates Business, a book for wedding pros. Remember that to September 30th, we're donating 100% of the proceeds of the pre-order of that book to hurricane relief efforts in Houston. So if you would like to donate to efforts and, if that's something that you can do, I would really appreciate it. You can head to shecreatesbusinesspodcast.com/book, BOOK. Grab your pre-order. You're going to get some goodies. They're shipping out on November 1st. And every order that we've had, I think I started this, halfway through August. Time is just kind of flying by. And then, of course, through the end of September here, last couple of days of September, 100% of proceeds from the book are going to go to relief efforts. I know we've had a lot going on in the world, and this is kind of the one thing I've decided that, hey, I can do this. And if you'd like to contribute to that, I would love to have you. So again, let's hop over to the show with Brittany, and I'll see you guys on Instagram to continue the conversation. Hope you're having a great day. Bye. Brittany, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited too. You guys, we were just talking offline. We were actually lamenting about our iMac problems. So we were both really happy that I do my interviews without video. So we're both super excited that we're just on audio and living the dream. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know everyone is shaking their head yep, we hear you.
Yep.
We hear you.
And you don't have to see me riding the Hot Mess Express today.
Me neither. I did not do my makeup. Oops. Well, Brittany, I gave everyone your professional bio there at the top of the show, but I would love for you, in your own words, to just, briefly tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and what do you do in the wedding industry?
Sure. So, long story short. Hi, everyone. I'm Brittany, newly resident of the Annapolis area. My husband and I just bought our first home near Kent Island. Awesome. And it's super important to us because we actually got married near the island. So we're just so happy to be back in a place that's really important to us. And I always like to say, cue the eye rolls, because I got into the wedding industry, of course, after my own wedding, where we got married on the Chesapeake Bay, and my husband is a pilot, and I just felt through the whole planning process and the design process that we were losing him in everything. It was becoming very pink and very ethereal. So I was like, what the heck can I do to really celebrate him, but not have it turn into a really kitschy, cliche wedding? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, totally.
So I just created quite a few paintings, like a alternative guest book painting and a custom wedding crest to really showcase him without, infringing on our more delicate theme. And I just really couldn't believe the positive response from guests. And then when our wedding photos were picked up for publication, I didn't really expect them to really feature the art. So I feel like I was onto something. Mm-hmm. So since then, it's just been this really wonderful experimental, mostly, journey of figuring out how can I serve the wedding industry through art, and really, if I have to do it myself or help encourage industry professionals to use art at the foundation of their wedding design. And I've been loving it ever since.
And so when was that? When did you, I guess, let me ask, when did your art when was it featured? I'm sorry, I'm stuttering.
Oh, no, you're great. So we got married October 2015, but I always like to tell people I started jumping into styled shoots or doing art for whatever someone would pay me that spring 2016. So it's really only been a year and change.
Yeah. And so where was your cool. No, I love that. That's awesome. This is going to be great. Where was your wedding published at that kind of made you think, this is a thing?
Oh, it was on Wedding Wire. So that was fun.
It's just casual. It was just on Wedding Wire.
Yeah, it was, oh man. And I mean, I just never expected it. I would never have expected that. And again, as a bride, as a customer, I used Wedding Wire and other tools to help find vendors. But now that I'm on the other side of the industry, I do realize what an honor that could be. And so especially at the time. And then when I started following how they pinned my work to Pinterest, and now I understand how that works, and I can now see how many people have pinned it since then, it really made my heart warm.
Seriously, so did your photographer submit that then to Wedding Wire?
I believe so. Because actually at the time, my best friend was a web developer at Wedding Wire. So I don't remember if like she had like gone over and said, you know, hey, can you look at these photos? Tell me what you think. Or Elizabeth Fogarty did our photos. She's amazing. Oh, cool. So she may have submitted them. Honestly, I feel so bad. I can't even remember. I feel like I was so like, what's happening?
You were in like the newlywed bliss stage. You don't have to remember anything.
Absolutely. So I am so sorry if any of y'all listening were like involved in my wedding and I can't remember. So I love y'all. I do.
Okay, so the wedding was published on Wedding Wire. At the wedding itself, you got a lot of positive feedback about your custom artwork, and I love the way you described this. You said it's really been like an experimental journey that you've loved, and I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of our business is an experimental journey because we're kind of creating our own rules, especially when it comes to like the digital landscape of marketing our businesses and, you know, how we communicate with clients and offering, you know, whether we choose to offer like digital offerings or, you know, physical products like artwork. So tell me, kind of take me through the steps then of saying, okay, I have something here. Now I'm going to actually like immerse myself in the industry. What did that look like for you?
Sure. I mean, right off the bat, I think it was, and it still is, a much bigger educational responsibility than I would have ever anticipated. And I feel like if I had known that a year and whatever ago, I think my anxiety would have spiked, and I'm not sure I really would have started or just taken the plunge. Because what I do, and now even that I offer live painting at weddings, a lot of people don't know about it. Or the hard lesson that I learned in the very beginning was people, especially couples, but even other industry professionals, are not as creative as I think we all are. And I don't mean for that to sound bad. I think it's just the classic, as a vendor, you really need to put out what you want to get, if that makes sense. You really have to show people, this is what I can do and this is what I can do for you, instead of what I started doing, which was kind of just saying yes to a lot of things, painting a lot of different pieces and hoping the right person would come along and say, oh, Britt, I really loved that painting you did for so-and-so. I have an idea. Do you think you can translate your talent and style and then execute my idea? Which on one hand, I'm so thankful I went through that, in terms of saying yes to everything right off the bat and not necessarily saying no to what we would all say is non-ideal work. Because over this experimental journey, I've really learned what my style is, where my heart is, whom I want to serve, and in what way. And I would never have gotten here had I not said yes to all those things. But it has been an experimental journey, and part of that has been educating people on what wedding art is, how you can use it in your design. And I never would have expected that right off the bat. And so I'm still trying to figure out ways of, well, how can I best turn on my painter's brain when I need to turn that off, turn on the educator's brain, turn that off. You know, we all go through that. So it's been such a journey, and I'm still in it, still trying to figure it out, but aren't we all?
Yeah, we really are. And so when you say educating, you mean educating not only couples, but also other vendors about the actual service itself, right? Like you can do custom wedding art, you can do live painting, you know, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how are you doing that right now, currently?
So my strategy thus far has been to really build up solid relationships with wedding planner friends, especially because, I mean, they're the ones developing wonderful relationships with their clients, with their couples. And so far they've been that really great buffer in terms of if I can either educate them or put out a piece of work that really speaks to them, they can then take it to the client and sort of absorb that educational responsibility instead of me shouting into the void. Whereas now I feel like I'm ready to take my business in the direction of most definitely speaking more to those couples personally, instead of relying on that, the intermediate relationship, like me to planner to them. But that's been working pretty well so far. And again, I wish I had known that sooner instead of shouting into the void early on.
Yes. One-on-one relationships with other vendors are so huge.
Yes. Amen. Absolutely.
And so as you move into starting to be more face-to-face with your clients rather than using that wedding planner or, what other vendor it may be as kind of the go-between, what are you thinking? And there's no right or wrong answer here, but like, what are you thinking as far as marketing strategy is concerned to get in front of those couples or to say, hey, here's this thing that you can do and let me tell you why it can be so valuable to your own wedding?
Sure. I'm the first to say I have not implemented this just yet. It's like on my immediate plan. Yeah, but I really, especially for me, since my product and my service is so visual, video is the way of the future. And so I have such a heart for my plan to really utilize either video or what do they call it? Vlogging now, to really more strategically, even perhaps use video with a current client to vlog about how I'm walking a current client through the conception phase, design phase, painting phase, delivery phase. And also, I have been so hesitant for like a year and change to start asking and outsourcing for help. And I finally just hired my first VA because I've definitely... Yeah. And like, I like to say this because I really don't think everyone needs a VA right off the bat. I mean, I waited a year and whatnot because I truly believe you have to put in the work, before you start believing that you have to outsource. But I finally hit that wall of I'm having a very difficult time turning on and turning off those different parts of my brain, especially since I'm a painter. I mean, how romantic is that in terms of the amount of creativity you have to use?
Right.
So I'm working very strategically with my VA, who is also a wedding planner herself, and that I'm really excited about that, and utilizing her expertise as well of how can we use especially my blog or vlogging or video to speak to those clients to not only show them this is what I can do, these are pieces I've done in the past, but sort of get over that hurdle of them looking at my work saying, that's nice, but I can't right now think in my head how I can use her. Yes. That's a huge barrier. I mean, with art in general, for how many thousands of years people look at art and they're like, that's nice, but I don't understand how it relates to me. So how can we take away that burden?
I think video is so smart because it's such a good, obviously I love the audio medium because, this podcast, but also, video incorporates so many things. It's such a multifaceted experience. And I love that you're thinking of that. Are you thinking, let me ask you, and this is like for my own personal, are you thinking of like incorporating live video at all? Like, I don't know, Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives. Do you see that fitting in at all to your strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually allow me to back up. I don't mean to sound promotional, but I just announced a personal goal of mine to live paint at least one wedding in every state. Over the next, cool. Yeah, over the next like 2 years or so. And so once that starts going, I thought it would be so cool since my live painting package is like 4 hours on site. And I always take the painting home to like add the details because like in 4 hours it would look like a hot mess. So, but I thought it would be so cool to start utilizing, especially something like Facebook Live, where if I can set up my phone on a tripod or whatnot strategically, people at home could watch my process and how the painting develops over those few hours at the actual wedding. So I'm really excited to start implementing that once everything starts going.
Oh, and it's awesome content for your vlog too, because it's sort of like,
Yes.
you know, traveling Brittany, like follow Brittany around the country.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
Like when I thought of it, it was actually such a personal thing because my husband's a pilot, and just, you know, in the year and change that I've been developing this, and then he became captain last year, we haven't done a lot. And especially since he has unique benefits, and I'm like, we're really craving adventure. I think this is a way I can like fulfill that in my soul and yet serve amazing couples along the way. So it's sort of, I don't mean to kill birds. I don't like killing birds, but killing two birds with stuff. Sorry, birds.
Sorry, birds. It's all right.
I don't like that, but you know what I mean.
You know, it's seriously such a good analogy.
Yeah, you're right. It's been around for a while for a reason.
I like it. Yeah. Well, that's really interesting. So, and is your husband a pilot in the Air Force?
No, he's a commercial pilot.
Oh, he's a commercial pilot. Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
That's really neat. So you guys are like, traveling is in your veins.
We want it to be.
Yes.
I feel like up until now, it's just, I mean, especially since like getting married and his promotion and my major life, 180, we're finally starting to settle. And especially since we just moved to an area that's really important to us and we finally have our little home, I think now that the roots are there, we can start branching out. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, these analogies today.
I know, it's so
a little
good.
cheesy.
Nope, I love it. We're just gonna continue with it because there's only one way, and that's the way, the analogy. Well, okay, let me back up just a little bit. I actually have two questions. What were you doing? I didn't ask this at the beginning. What were you doing before your wedding, I guess, before you decided like, hey, this custom art thing this is my jam?
Yeah, absolutely. I was actually in arts management, arts legislation for a little while. And when we got married, I was working for the arts branch of the DC government, the grant funding branch. And so actually, I love that you asked that because that's been constantly on my mind in terms of how I can better utilize that experience and those skills that I have to especially serve artists. Mm-hmm. Because especially that branch's mission was to, how do I say this? Well, oh my gosh, let me back up. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Our mission was to strengthen the local, what we call the creative economy. And that was such a new term for us. But now that I'm in the creative industry, it actually isn't that new a term. So that's been really fun. So we granted money to local artists, but a huge problem that I noticed while I was there was that a lot of artists weren't treating themselves as businesses. And I think that's much more of a mental block than anything, especially visual artists. It's such a traditional field. I mean, dating back how many hundreds, thousands of years.
Yes.
And so when you're hyper dependent on grant funding and whatnot, you lose that discipline of treating yourself as a business. And I'm starting really to notice the same sort of issues now in our wedding industry of the creativity is very romantic, and there's romanticism about being a creative, but not the basic discipline that you should give yourself to treat yourself like a business. So that's always on my mind of how can I bridge those two life experiences in my life.
That's where you have a really interesting view because you've seen it from both sides. And I would tend to agree. We were just talking about this in my mastermind yesterday, actually. One of the girls in my mastermind is an artist. And we were kind of talking about that. Like I know it's kind of cliche to say, but really like that starving artist syndrome is so real. And it is real in the creative industry and in the wedding industry. I was actually just talking to someone, have an episode airing later about, well, it'll air before this episode, but about pricing and like how to price your services for profit. And I feel like it's such a misnomer when people say charge what you're worth, because that is so, it's like, what am I worth? I'm not worth this. And then you wrap yourself up in charging you personally, instead of just saying, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm offering, here's how many hours I'm spending, instead of being, I feel like we need to be a little bit more realistic and logical about our pricing, instead of saying, charging what I am worth. Like, my value, it far exceeds this business. My personal value. And so again, I feel like just saying it that way is kind of detrimental, instead of just saying, like, what are your fixed costs? What are your, how much do you want to save for taxes? How much do you want to take home? You know what I mean? Like, and actually taking yourself out of it and just being logical about it is so much easier to price your services.
Absolutely. And I love that you called it the starving artist mentality, because it's not even just to like visual artists. I mean, I think we're on the same page in terms of we see it even in our wedding industry. And you just made me think of something about how, I know we were talking offline a little bit about this, but I think that this goes to something that I'm particularly passionate about preaching about, which is diversifying yourself so that you can bring in more profit. And I notice it especially in artists who are sort of wrapped up in, that romantic starving artist syndrome of they live and breathe just for their art. And if their favorite pieces happen to not be selling, well, how am I going to get by? Well, I'm going to start asking for grants. I'm going to start, taking and asking for money from here and there. When you're an artist, you have such talent. How can you diversify your talents to start bringing in more income so that you can create your favorite pieces and your ideal pieces? And you don't have to promote that. You know what I mean? Like, if you're, I'll just speak to myself.
Yes, I love this.
I'm primarily a visual artist with acrylic. Y'all don't know what I'm doing off of Instagram, what kind of pieces I'm creating for friends and family or those who may ask me. If I have the time and if someone appreciates the talent that I'm bringing to this world, I more often than not say, yes, you want me to create this piece for someone in your family who's really ill and they would really love it, or you want me to create this piece for your mother. If I have the time, absolutely. That's such an honor that you're going to come to me, even though this isn't necessarily a wedding related painting or painting that I offer. But one, it's serving someone. You're making someone happy if you have the time and the capacity, and you're bringing in more income. Yes. So you don't have to live, don't get so wrapped up in the romanticism of it all. Do what you need to do, but only put your ideal projects out on social media, because that's what most people are seeing. But y'all don't know what I'm doing off of this.
You don't know what I'm doing after this interview? Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Sometimes we just, honestly, sometimes we just need to hustle. I feel like, we do listen to a lot of messages, and mostly the people educating, which is great because they have been in the industry for a while, but a lot of people educating us and this, you guys, don't mishear what we're not saying. We're not saying don't find your ideal client. Please do that. That's going to make your business flourish. Oh my gosh. Do niche down, yes. All those things. We're not saying that that's not great, but there are seasons in your business where you just need to hustle. The other thing that Brittany said at the beginning of this interview was that sometimes you have to stretch yourself and diversify so that you can figure out who your ideal client is. You can't just write down on a paper and say, I want this person, this person, this person, without actually experiencing it firsthand, because you might actually find that your ideal client is different than what you write down on paper. And the only way you figure that out is through experience. There are times in our business where you're just going to have to put down your ideal client piece of paper and just do the work and just hustle. You're just going to have to put down Instagram and just hustle. It is okay to take these other projects. It is okay to learn by doing. It is okay to, look at the photographers and the planners who've been doing it for 5, 6, 7, 10 years and be like, I've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. I am not there yet. I am still in a season of experimentation. I don't know what works perfectly yet. And to get there, we don't all have to be, it's frustrating. And again, with the analogies, because that's what Brittany and I are all about today. But honestly, I cannot say it enough. Please stop comparing like your chapter 5 to someone's chapter 36. Whoever you see on Instagram was not the same person 5 years ago, period. You can, you know what I'm saying? Like you just,
oh my God.
Like there's just time we do, like we're just going to have to hustle. It's not going to be all puppies, rainbows and unicorns and kittens at the beginning or all the time. Like there's just times where you just got to do it.
Yep. I know our cameras aren't working, but I have like all the praise hands right now.
I'm really talking with my hands right now.
Oh my gosh. I cannot, everything you said, everything. And the way when I have a personal conversation with someone, the way I like to put it is, I feel like there are so many in our industry preaching their algorithm of success. And that, you know, they've gained all these followers and they know that they can make some cash off of sharing what they know, what they've done. And that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. You need to make a living. I believe in that. Thank you. But I think what we all tend to forget is they may be preaching this algorithm, that person may be preaching that algorithm, but the number one algorithm that we all will use and abide by to get success is saying yes to the things that we would no longer do, especially in the beginning, especially in your first 1 to 2 years of business. Everyone says yes to everything to the point where they're tired of doing so and then realize where their heart is, where their head is, what they're best at, and then they move on. We all do that. But I feel like a lot of leaders in our industry, they want to forget that part of their past. They don't want to show it. They don't even want to talk about it or acknowledge that they somehow, quote, made that mistake, even though to me it's not a mistake. But that's the algorithm we all have to follow, not everything else, how to make 6 figures in 3 months, blah, blah, blah. And so please, like, if I can just speak some truth into y'all, you're going to get there. You have to hustle, say yes, but be strategic about putting what you love and what you want onto social media. No one else has to know. No one's looking at you through this microscope that you think we're all looking at you under. You're going to get there. It's all going to be okay.
And I think it's really important to point out, too, that what Brittany is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brittany, but when you're saying, like, hey, do those experimental projects, say yes, be strategic about what you market, I think it's important here, and this is my marketing brain, you guys, this is brilliant, and I hope you're not thinking like, oh, well, does that make me a liar if I'm, like, taking other projects but only marketing, like, what I want to do? No, it doesn't. That's called strategy, and it just is. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Like, I interviewed Jenna Kutcher on the podcast, and she's brilliant, but she's the first to say that, like, 4 years ago, like, she bought a crappy camera on Craigslist, and she's not who she was today, but
absolutely. And it goes both ways, because what you should do that, but also remember everyone else around you should be doing that too. So don't get wrapped up that you think someone, whether it's your competition or just someone you would love to aspire to be, is living this perfect life with these perfect projects. Maybe not, especially what's been so hard for me in terms of there's not many people out there doing what I do, and thus it's very difficult to, one, look at someone and aspire to be them, or strategically invest in certain educational opportunities over others. I sort of have to, like, spread myself so thin and hope that I collect golden nuggets from planners or photographers. But one thing I've realized, especially with wedding photographers, and this isn't to, like, bash wedding photographers or say that y'all aren't working hard, but in terms of Instagram, a very visual platform, if one wedding photographer books one ideal wedding, the amount of images that they have to share on Instagram is insane. From the little details to actually having the couple in the photo, that's an incredible amount of content from one booked client. Whereas for someone like me, or perhaps a stationery designer, one painting, there's only so many photos and whatnot I can take of that one painting before my audience is going to start to realize, is she doing anything else? Like, has she been hired for anything else? So it's like, don't compare yourself, especially cross disciplines. And that was something I really had to learn the hard way. I look at a lot of amazing, especially someone like photographers online. I see I'm trying to watch their strategy and whatnot, but it's not the same. And if I start comparing myself, I'll never get up in the morning. I don't know if I articulated that to the best of my ability.
You did. No,
okay.
Yeah, no, you did. I understand what you were saying. And again, you guys know how much I love photographer. We love everybody. What Brittany just said was that don't compare yourself across disciplines. I feel like that's very sound advice, which is saying like, I am a venue owner. I'm not going to compare myself to Brittany because I don't have anything beautiful take-home keepsake that my couples can take with them. It's just my building, you know? And for Brittany, like, she's not going to compare herself to a photographer because they're providing, hundreds of images and they have all of those edited images to pick through. And as planners, don't compare yourself to florists because you're a planner. You're dealing with the down and dirty logistics. You guys, you got your hands in all the pots, where the florist is just dealing with the florals. So I loved that. Don't compare yourself across disciplines. Don't compare yourself, period. But across disciplines, especially, that's very difficult.
Right. You may learn like that golden nugget of strategy. I mean, I most certainly have from, I think Jenna Kutcher is a wonderful example of a wedding photographer. Yeah. Like the amount of strategy I've learned from her is insane, but I'm not going to go home at the end of the day and start you should never compare yourself to Jenna Kutcher. That's just, don't do that, guys. Don't do that, guys. But I'm not going to compare myself to like her, the wedding photographer. It's just different. You're speaking to your client in a different way. You're providing a different service. So there's no reason to beat yourself up at the end of the day. Just do you. And if you find that you're in someone like me or even Kinsey, I'm sure, because it's not like, to my knowledge, there's not someone really out there who's like the expert of venue strategy. It's a lot of figuring it out on your own. And it's a lot of just hustling to the point where you have to realize that this is working for me. Just because someone in a different discipline or even a different industry is preaching this algorithm that made them successful, hey, everything's okay with me right now. I'm not going to go switching everything just because they're encouraging me to. Yeah. You have to just figure it out. I still am like a year and a half in, like I don't know what I'm doing.
100%. Yeah, we're 100% still figuring it out because you are so right. Well, you're more than right. There's honestly no person out there who is, I mean, you can find photography educators, you can find calligraphy educators. There's literally no venue educator that I can go and be like, oh, this is the Jasmine Star of venues, and I'm going to kind of like take advice from her. Like Katie is my business partner in the venue. She's my sister-in-law. We're literally just figuring it out as we go because there's no one for us to look up to or to mentor us specifically on venues, period. That's just the truth.
Exactly. And that I feel like that's really difficult. Like some days I sit here and I'm like, crap, like if I had a Jenna Kutcher to tell me about wedding art, where would I be? Okay, I can sit here and think about that. But then on the other hand, if you want to just change your mental perspective, there's a need. Maybe Kinsey in like the next year or two, you will become that Jasmine Star of venue educators.
Yeah,
because
I will.
there's obviously a need.
Kidding. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just kidding.
No, you're good. But I mean, I would just encourage I'm certainly thinking about that in terms of visual artists or even wedding artists. But if you're noticing even just at a local level that there is a need for an educator, go for it. Just, I guess, realize where you are right now or where you have been don't necessarily, preach that your algorithm is going to get someone else to their success, but just share your story, share what you know. And you never know what someone like you right now, what golden nugget they're going to take and how they're going to run with that and how in 10 years they're going to be speaking at a conference and thank you. And you're going to be like, what?
Yes, that's right.
Everyone was listening.
Yeah. This is such a common theme. I feel like we're really, it's very clear that Brittany and I are both really passionate about this, but this is a common theme through all of I've done almost 75 interviews, and this is a common theme through everyone, is that, it feels sometimes disheartening to like take a peek online and be like, wow, am I not doing the right thing? I think everyone's kind of just collectively saying, I'm not going to compare myself anymore. Like, I'm going to like take advice and take mentorship and process it through my own lens and see if it's going to work for me, because the answer is not always yes. What's good for the goose is not always good for the gander. And I think we're kind of just, I don't want to generalize, but I think kind of just collectively as a creative industry, we're all saying like, it's great to follow people. It's great to get advice, encouragement, and motivation, but I do have to kind of like stay in my own lane, keep my blinders on, and figure out what actually works for me.
Amen. Praise hand emojis.
Praise hands emojis and singing. Well, and singing. Well, as we wrap up here, Brittany, I would love, I think one of your main pieces of advice would just be to, hey, get out of your comfort zone, try a bunch of things, experiment, and, stay in your own lane. Don't feel like that what you see on Instagram is what is actually happening behind the scenes of someone's business or in their bank account. What would you kind of want to send people off with? If you could finally say, you were given a talk on this interview, you could say, I want to send you off with this one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh man, I think it's that the world needs you. Like plain and simple, the world needs you. The world needs your art. The world needs your creativity. The world needs your perspective. And so don't be afraid to do what you need to do to strengthen all of that. Because I most certainly continue to go through the creative journey of when I started out, I looked around and noticed that the industry was kind of going in that more organic direction. And I looked at a lot of the stationery art and whatnot that was out there. And all I wanted to do was blend in. And all I wanted to do was just be another person who produced that, because that's where I felt the industry was going. And that's what would, get me money. And that's another thing. Don't always just chase the money. That never often gets you to where you want to be. But when I finally said, you know what, I'm fed up with chasing a style that's not on my heart, that doesn't come so easy to me, I found that there were a lot of couples feeling really neglected, that they didn't identify with this very organic, ethereal trend, that they're more whimsical, they're more colorful, and they were looking for someone like me. And I was doing a disservice to this world by not being me, if that makes sense. And so I just encourage everyone to just think about the couples whom you are letting down by not being yourself and by not being there for them, because just like you may be feeling like an outsider in our industry, they're most certainly feeling like outsiders as clients. And if you just started putting into the world what you were meant to do, whether that's your style, your product, your service, it's going to be amazing the tribe you're going to find and you're going to attract.
Yes, I love that. Don't chase a style that is not on your heart. I wrote that down. That's beautiful. Brittany, yeah, seriously, thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and you guys listening, I hope it encourages all of us to just be ourselves and, take in advice, but also know that you have exactly what you need to be successful, which is yourself, your skill, your talent, and we can learn new things, but we can also kind of carve our own path.
Amen.
Cool. Brittany, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We'll chat soon. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to She Creates Business. Please take a minute and head to iTunes to leave an honest review so we can help more wedding pros find the show.